What's up guys, I'm Chasing Lamely and welcome back to episode number 21 of From Grove to Glory. We are in Rio again for round number 20, it's the second time we've been there. Last time out we got ourselves a 4th place finish with Fernando Alonso, and Robert Kubica unfortunately could not find his way into the top 10. In terms of the driver standings at this point, we have Alonso in 7th on 86 points, Kubica in 10th on 54, and George Russell in 15th on 28. There's a lot of drivers here who've been through the entire season and have not as yet managed to get themselves more points than George Russell despite driving more races, including Carlos Sainz, which is slightly confusing. You'd expect Sergio Perez to have more points at this point as well. But there we go. We're 4th in the Constructors' standings. We are sitting 14 points behind Red Bull, and we are also sitting 30 points ahead of Renault, so very much more chasing down Red Bull than running away from Renault at this stage. Although it could all turn round if Renault were somehow able to get a big win today. Maybe a podium or two would help them get above us, but I don't think we're there yet. Otherwise, in terms of things we have to do pre-race, nothing really has changed. We're still waiting on a new gearbox. The parts that we were waiting for to do up reliability-wise are all on the car, so everything is as good as it can be. It was the brakes we were waiting to get up on reliability. I think we're still working on them. We're just using the old brakes today because they are still slightly better than the new ones that are incoming. So we're gonna hedge our bets and go with the old ones for now. This is the current development. Look, the current improvement of parts that's going on. Everything focused now on just getting the best parts we have to be the best they can be ahead of the new season, because obviously we only have about 2 weeks until the end of the season, 2-3 weeks till the end of the season. So we need to try and get everything as good as it possibly can be as soon as possible is essentially the key. In fact, I'm not even sure if taking that off will speed things up. It doesn't really, so we'll leave it as it is. Yeah, so that's how things are going. HQ wise, everything is looking as good as can be. Our test track was finally finished. This should finish over the winter break. And then it's just waiting for the car factory to come in so we can start making an actual profit race on race. So that's everything you need to know, catching up on between races. So let's get into it. We'll do our usual, and I will go and do qualifying and practice off screen because that's always the best way. Let's see. Tyre wear is medium. I think I went for 555 last time. I think we'll go like that this time out. That sounds about right because it's medium tyre wear, but I want to make sure we get a good quali spot. So we will do that. Let's make sure I actually do that right. Yeah, we'll aim for a good quali session. Try and get ourselves a good place on the grid, and then we'll see how it goes in the race. So stick around, stick with me, and we'll be back. Well, in the blink of an eye for you guys, pretty much, on the other side of the little intro animation. See you in a sec. Okay, so race time is here. We have gone with soft tyre and race trim knowledge for both cars, and that's because the medium tyre wear that we're expecting today, which it doesn't tell me there, I don't know why I even look there, is I think going to mean it's a one-stopper. Softs and supers and ultras are going to be mandatory. Obviously, ultras are mandatory for Fernando Alonso. He qualified in 8th, so he's starting on the ultras. And starting Kubica on the alternative opposite strategy, purely because I don't want to kind of risk having to pit them at approximately the same time. And also, I think Kubica has shown that if you let him have a long stint early on, he tends to finish better. Setup wise, all excellent, everything is perfect, everything is spot on, so we're all happy. Strategy wise, Kubica is going to start pushing, everything else is going to be yellow, because I feel like we'll probably get 18 laps off of a set of ultras. 16, I think it's 16 to 18 is the window on a set of ultras. Ordinarily I think Alonso's go somewhere around 12 as they are now, so I think maybe that's going to be the way. So let's get into the 5 red lights and the grid, and let's see how that goes, shall we? So the grid looks a little something like this. Hamilton on pole next to Alonso with a 0.6 gap, which is horrendous. I think Lewis is just going to disappear in this race, if I'm completely honest. Behind them, Bottas and Leclerc fairly evenly spaced. Rahal is on 5th. He's our big rival next to Max Verstappen, the guy he replaced at Red Bull. Behind them, Hulkenberg and Fernando Alonso on row 4. Row 5 is Kimi Raikkonen and Carlos Sainz, who's looking to finally get some good points on the board. He'll have to come in early though. Ricciardo and Gasly make up row 6. Row 7 is Romain Grosjean and Lando Norris. Row 8 is, of course, I say of course you've not seen it, but Perez and Giovinazzi. Row 9 is led by Robert Kubica next to Lance Stroll, the former Williams driver. And on the back row, as usual, is Kvyat and Albon. The Toro Rossos are not necessarily the best cars. Slightly frustrating that Robert Kubica was 0.014 of a second away from getting himself out of Q3, which is, not the one. But let's go to the 5 red lights of destiny. We'll take these off because we have to. And then we'll see how we go. Let's turn the camera so we can see what's going on. I think we're probably going to go and join Fernando, because Fernando is definitely going to have the more interesting start to the race, I would think. Given he's been consistently quick over the course of the weekend. He's actually not looked a million miles off of the pace of the front 2 teams, all practice and all qualifying. It's just kind of his hot laps have been awful. But certainly in practice, we were very much, whenever we were on track near a Ferrari or a Merc, we were within touching distance of them. So it should be interesting to see what he can do throughout the course of this race. And the first lap, of course, usually we expect to pick up positions here. What's actually happening is everyone's just kind of disappearing away from us, which is slightly worrying. Sainz is going to start to drop back, which is expected because his tyres are not necessarily, they're not necessarily in the optimum window. I think the optimum window is actually just before where he started on these tyres, so he'll probably drop back quite a bit over this first stint. But it's just going to be a case of whether Alonso can keep Raikkonen behind him, which doesn't look like he can. Maybe he'll take him on the first corner, or on the corner here. He hasn't, and actually Sainz is coming back at us, which is slightly worrying. Kubica is struggling to get through the field as well, despite the fact that his temps are looking fairly okay. Despite the fact we're telling him to push. Notable actually, Alonso's tyre temps are dropping quite horrendously. If this might force me into a 2-stopper. If I can't keep the tyres in the window, I may well have to push him a little bit, which is not what I want to do, but we'll see how things develop. In terms of weather, we're expecting it to stay consistent temperatures, we're expecting it to stay completely dry. It's just a straight fight. There's not going to be a lucky kind of can we take advantage of a wet period anywhere in this race, I don't think. So we're going to have to see what we can do. It's going to be very, very interesting. Alonso dropping back to 14th. Really struggling in Sector 3. Really, really struggling. Let's give him the push to get him up the field. Hopefully we'll get Kubica up the field as well with a bit of a push. And we'll see how this goes. I think what we'll do a speed up. We'll do a little bit of a Speedy Gonzalez. See what can go on here. Alonso needs to get himself back up through the field, though. That's going to be the ideal. Kubica needs to get himself back up through the field as well, because I don't want to be staring at the back of cars the entire race. Alonso's tyre temps seem to be holding fairly steady, which is okay. I'm going to drop Kubica down. Probably in the end, as soon as I start getting the tyres are too warm warning, will be when I start thinking about pushing or pulling Kubica's tyres down. There we are, we're just about there now. And we'll see if we can maybe try and keep him in the race for as long as we possibly can. Alonso's going to have a long, hard slog today. I've just got a feeling we're relying on other teams around us to two-stop. That's worrying that his tyres have overheated despite the fact I've put them onto neutral. That's something to keep an eye on. I'm guessing Alonso's will stay in the window a little bit longer. Probably not a lot longer, but they might last to the end of his first stint, which is very much the goal, I guess. Very much the goal, to keep the tyres within or away from overheating massively throughout his first stint. We need to actually get... Alex Albon has somehow got ahead of us, which I didn't notice, which is quite spectacular. He's having a really good race if he can get himself up ahead of us this early on. it's going to be an interesting one because Rahal and Gasly are both ahead of us, and we need to get points off of them pretty badly. Like I said, we need to pick up 14 more points from them over the course of the next 2 races, which is going to be quite the struggle as things are looking right now. But yeah, we need to maybe consider that. Let's conserve Alonso's tyres as well, because he is not having the best luck at keeping his tyres in the window. I mean, they're going slightly longer than Kubica's did, but they're not really doing anything spectacular. Kubica really struggling to get off that back row of the grid, that back 2 positions, which is worrying. Carlos Sainz is the only man behind him, and he's already come in. So that's going to change things just a little bit. We're going to have to put Alonso back onto neutral, I think. It's going to be a tyre management kind of race, although this could change things. If we get a safety car, it will change things. It's not looking like we will, which is fine, but not ideal. And we're really starting to have to think about when are we bringing in Fernando. At this point, we're going to give Fernando a bit of a push though, because it feels like it's time to give him the push forward. And that's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Alex Albon is up into the top 10 and we're still behind him, which is not where we need to be at all. I mean, more importantly, we need to get up ahead of the Red Bulls, and you've got to think that if the game was smart enough to understand the whole concept of a B team, you just think Albon would be weaving ahead of Alonso just to try and keep him behind. There, I'm just going to drop that down because this is going to be time to make that stop. We've got to get 31 laps. 31 laps is doable on a set of softs. It might be doable on a set of supers, but let's not take an unnecessary risk. We're going to recharge that battery to full, and we're going to have to go with a quick stop and hope for the best with Fernando, because anything other than a quick stop is probably going to hurt the race entirely. Kubica's doing okay actually to stay ahead of guys like Sainz and Hulk and Raikkonen, but we will see. We will see how this goes. It's going to be interesting. We're going to go for the big full-on push, I think, on the way into the pits, because why wouldn't we? Kubica is catching Alonso, which is slightly disconcerting. Slightly disconcerting. I mean, there is an argument that I could have, if I worked on the super softs, I could have just done a double super soft race. But I think Alonso just ran wide there. That's not ideal. Not ideal at all. Let's maybe not push if we're going to go risking running wide. Although we're going to drop him down in a second anyway, because he will start to enter the pit lane. Yeah, we understand your tyre deg is through the roof, buddy. I fully comprehend why that's going on. Right, let's see what we can do for a pit stop, because this is going to be where all the difference gets made. We need to get ourselves out and ready to go to the end. That's the ideal, that's the dream. Ahead of Carlos Sainz coming out the pits would be also excellent. It looks like we've just about achieved that. We have, and let's go full, unleash the charge as quickly as we can. And then it's going to be really a case of just managing tyres till the end. We're going to drop Kubica back down onto a conserve strategy. And that's going to probably keep things fairly okay for a while. That should maybe give us a chance to do something, give Kubica a push, because he is up there with Leclerc. Alonso's job now is just to stay ahead of Carlos Sainz and kind of manage his tyres. Let's stick with Kubica for a while. See if he can get himself within touching distance of anything at all. Definitely, I think, going to be a one-stop for most people. I can't see anyone risking the two-stop. I mean, it could theoretically be faster if you've got the ultra soft tyres available. It is, I suppose, theoretically quicker. But, races are not won in theory, they're won in practice. And that's one of the oldest adages in the world of sport, I think. We've taken Albon on the track, which is good. Don't think we're going to get the full pit stop gap ahead of him, but we've taken him on the track. Rahal has gone to a set of super softs, which is interesting. There is an argument if you could stretch an ultra soft stint far enough, you could go to the super softs. But you know, it's a brave strategy. I think Vettel and Bottas might be trying it. But you expect Vettel and Bottas to do. Gasly is currently on the podium, which is not something I want to see. I don't think he'll stay there, but it's not something I want to see. I certainly, if all else is to be, if nothing else can be avoided, if we can't avoid a Red Bull getting on the podium, getting on in the points, I don't want them on the podium. That is the plan, at the very least. We're going to keep an eye on these tyre temps. We're going to push Kubica back up and give him that big push too, because why wouldn't we? That looks like it brought him back to within attacking distance of Lando Norris as well, which is pretty handy. Alonso is going to be the guy though to keep an eye on in terms of tyre temps, because he, you know, he needs to keep him in a manageable window. He needs to get himself back onto the back of Max Verstappen as well, which is going to be an interesting proposition. You can't get past the McLaren. That's not what I want to hear, Bobby. If I'm honest, that's not what I want to hear. I think you're probably going to sneak your way into the points, but I don't think it's going to be comfortably into the points. I'd certainly expect one of the drivers to sneak into the points today. I just don't know where we're going to sneak into the points. I mean, Alonso, as long as he can keep Rahal behind him, is probably our man for points today. But we'll roll with it as best we can. We're going to go and conserve some tyres with Fernando just to drop them back down into regular working temp. We're going to push Kubica a bit further. Currently 20 laps remaining, and it's really going to be a case of when is the right time to make that switch. Kubica will, on a set of ultras, get 16 laps. These tyres have got about 8 left on them, so the window for crossing over isn't a big one. Probably going to be looking at lap sort of 27ish. I bring him in, I think. So we're just going to hope he can stay consistent, keep himself going. We're going to give Alonso a push, I think, just to get him as far up the field as we can. And then, like I said, it's just a case of seeing what Robert Kubica can do in terms of gapping the guys behind him. Ideally trying to stay out of too much traffic on his way out on the ultras. He'll be the only man on the ultras when he comes in for them, which is okay, but it's not ideal. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how this happens. 17 laps remaining now, which is sort of the window, but not quite there. I think, who is this pushing through behind us now? This is Max Verstappen, who's pushed his way through. We can probably push there, get ourselves maybe back ahead of him. It's not impossible we can get back ahead of him. Not impossible at all. I think maybe one more lap after this lap is going to be the ticket for us. As soon as we pass the pit entrance, we'll start lining up Robert Kubica's pit stop, and then we'll see how we can make things work from there. That's going to be the dream, I think. That's going to be the fastest way to get him to the end. And then from there, we just have to hope, is basically what we're saying. Will give us the scope to push as we need to push as well, which is going to be fine. In fact, we'll do a bit of a push lap here on the in lap, because we should just about be able to get there. Speed that up a little bit, because we don't need to see him getting past the pit lane. We just need to keep Hulk and Verstappen behind us until we get past the pit entry, which is there, and then, like I said, that should be enough spare to play with to get there. We're going to fully recharge the battery. We're going to keep this pit strategy on a quick one, and we're going to hope for the best. Hoping for the best is indeed the strat of the day. Strat of the day, keep everyone behind us. That's strat of the day. We're in 9th, which means someone probably come in for a pit stop and I didn't notice. Every little helps as we get towards the end of the lap, and then we're going to go with neutral tyres. And let's hope this is a good, clean, easy pit stop. We're going to give a push to Fernando as well, and we're going to put him up onto the neutral tyres. And we're going to see how that handles things. Mistake-free pit stop, 1.6 is a good pit stop. Kubica's not going to come out last, which is actually ideal too, although he's only really got Albon behind him. So we're going to have to hope that he can start a good push, keep Albon behind him. which I think is how he came out the last pit stop, as I recall. And yeah, it's just Gasly and Perez and Grosjean left to stop. So 3 places available ahead of Fernando, who is the guy to watch right now, really. And we're going to see if he can hold on to what would, in theory, be a net P9, I think. I think it'd be a net P10 or P9 once this pit cycle is done. We'll keep an eye on that, see how that goes. We're also going to keep an eye on all the temps. As always, the tyre temps are really going to be what kills us. Because as much as I could just burn through Kubica's tyres, I don't want to burn through Kubica's tyres, because that's counterproductive. Also because I don't know if he's the kind of driver who's going to benefit from pushing. Like, I know he's fairly smooth as a driver goes, but let's not take the unnecessary risks. We've had the pit stops happen, and Sainz, I think, made a pit. Oh, it was Perez that was ahead of us. Yeah, it's going to be awkward. It's going to be awkward. That a second pit stop for Carlos Sainz. It is brave stuff, making a second pit stop at this stage in the race. Really brave. Alonso should be okay till the end now. He just needs to kind of hold on to things. We'll just have a check on what he's got left on these tyres. He's got 15 left on the tyres. He should be okay. We'll see how this goes with regards to everything. Alonso is kind of in no man's land now, which is okay. I don't want him to really be in no man's land, but it's not unacceptable for him to be in that position. I'm also just slightly concerned about how things are going in terms of fuel burn, because Alonso is not reclaiming fuel at the rate you'd think you'd want him to, but he might just make it. He might just make it back through. We're going to have to cool off Kubica's tyres a bit. What's left on them? There's 8-9 laps to go, 11 laps. Yeah, let's maybe not push them too far. We'll conserve them a little bit. Just get them a bit cooler. Just try and do what we can. I think we're really relying on other people making a second pit stop to be able to stay in contention with Kubica. I think we'd need 4 or 5 pit stops to happen above us minimum to get Kubica anywhere near a chance of points this afternoon. But Alonso is doing okay. Alonso is actually staying fairly well within touching. He's keeping Rahal behind him, which at least cuts into the point advantage that the Red Bull team are going to get today. Not necessarily ideal, but it cuts into it, which is ultimately the best we can do. If we cannot beat them, at least we can cut into what they'll gain from this, which is going to be fine. I say cut into it, marginal cut into it, because Rahal might have to pit again before the end of the race. It's not inconceivable he'd have to pit again before the end of the race. Alonso certainly won't need to, or he shouldn't need to. They should have at least 4 laps left on these tyres. Saying 8, so I'm not too worried we're going to push back up on Kubica's, because Kubica, I presume, has enough laps left on the tyres as well to get himself to the end. And it's just a case of hoping we bring this home now. We should have passed Leclerc in the pit. We didn't pass Leclerc in the pit cycle. That's interesting. See if we can catch up to him whilst he's vulnerable. And we'll see how that goes. We're also still very much marginal on fuel. I say marginal on fuel. Actually, we can afford to auto a little bit and give a push to Kubica, which is good. Maybe actually a bit of a push on the tyre temps, which is also going to help. Who else has come in? Raikkonen has come in. So we're just going to keep picking up spots now. Rahal has also come in. He's dropped out of the points entirely. And we could be on to something a little bit special. It very much is going to come down to touch and go with Alonso's fuel. Very touch and go with Alonso's fuel. We can probably conserve some tyres. If we hope that Bottas and Verstappen come in, although Bottas is probably only going to come out in 4th anyway, which would... In fact, I'd like Bottas to not come in. If I can avoid it, if he can not come in, that's really the ideal. What is going on with Kubica? Why has Kubica not got any ERS? Oh, it's because I put it on auto. That's why. I remember, I was there, you were there, we were all there. Everything was going fine until I started trying to think about how strategies worked. I fully blame anyone in the comments who didn't realise that I knew that all along. Because I knew that all along. Okay, guys, I knew all along what was going on. I didn't need anyone criticising my planning. Where's Alonso in relation to other cars? He is okay. It's just going to be a case of what can we push through with our boy Robert Kubica. He should be okay to make it to the end on these tyres. It is the final lap. In fact, they should both be okay on the final lap to make it through tyres. To be honest, I think they're both lapped as it is. Off the top of my head, I think they're both lapped as it is. Maths in my head, it's a 1:20-ish lap. So no, they're both still on the lead lap as things stand. Hamilton is probably not far behind us. He's not, but he shouldn't lap us before the end of the race, which is actually fine. Actually fine. We're just going to keep pushing the tyres until they fall off, they drop off at the end. Alonso should make it through. Final lap should actually be in fuel gains, which is even better. We'll give him that push, but he should be in fuel gains. He shouldn't be marginal on fuel, which is definitely ideal. Let's not do that. Let's not take you off of the push, because that's not going to help anybody. Push. Use the rest of your ERS. Don't be daft. And in fact, I think maybe we can probably, just to be on the safe side, because Raikkonen is definitely gaining, let's use the rest of that ERS push and hope that Raikkonen doesn't have an answer for that, because you never know what can happen on the last lap of a Grand Prix. Alonso is just about to come in, cross the line. That should be nice and easy. A top bins kind of finish for him. He can push with the fuel as well. There's no shame in having him push with the fuel at this point. It's pretty much there as these things go. We'll keep an eye on, obviously, because we don't want to completely burn out the fuel. But he should make it towards the end quite comfortably. He has made it to the end. Jobs are good. Let's go back to Robert Kubica. Is there a place available to us? Probably not. To be fair, I think Raikkonen's going to come across the line regardless, but still, things looking good, and we are okay. We've done okay. We've got ourselves in the points. We've got ourselves the magical bonus that we would be looking for. Yeah, good times all around. A 7th place finish. We've kept Rahal out of the points. We need to skip that before I get drama. Skip that massively before I get drama. And yeah, we'll hope this has been enough to maybe not close the gap, because Gasly, obviously, as far as I remember, was ahead of us. I don't think anything happened that would drop him behind us. And we'll see what this brings in before we do the last race of the season, which is always going to be an issue. The last race of the season, there's going to be some big maths involved. Before the next race, I'm going to have to do some big maths and see if I can figure out what we need in terms of points to get ourselves, or in terms of permutations to get ourselves ahead of things. Two guys ahead of us stopped twice, which was Bottas and Leclerc. Otherwise, I think we were pretty much right, because anyone else who used a 2-stop ended up towards the back of the field. That's worked out okay for us. It's been a decent strategy. We're going to skip forward. We're going to see what's going to happen with scrutineering. Can we pick up another place on scrutineering? I suspect we probably can't. They tend to be pretty good at this level for not screwing up with scrutineering. So that's a 6-point haul. So we've lost 9 to Gasly. So it's a -3. -3 on points, which makes that a 17-point gap. It's not unassailable. But we do need to get ourselves on the podium, or into at least a double, and probably a double points finish as well, to be fair, to put ourselves ahead. The Drivers' Championships, Gasly is 11 points now behind Alonso. Alonso, though, is sitting 9 points behind Ricciardo, so all to play for there. And in terms of the Rahal Kubica battle, it's a 4-point gap. Grosjean needs to get onto a podium to have any chance of overcoming that and getting himself into the top 10. Yeah, confirmation, we're now at a 13? Is that a 13-point gap? Can I just not maths? 49 plus 3 is 23. 23. Alright. I was going to say, that would be really... I didn't think the maths there quite played out the way I thought it would. all the way it should have played out, but you've got to check these things. You can't just take it on faith. You've got to sometimes do the math. That was mental math, by the way. It's a thing they used to teach us in school, but probably don't teach anymore. I don't know. I've seen this new math thing and I don't understand it, and I used to teach maths once upon a time. No idea. No idea what this new math is supposed to be for. It looks like you just made stuff harder. But, just my opinion. Just my opinion. Actually running quite a short episode today so far. It's about 20, probably about 28 minutes, probably coming up just before the half-hour mark. I think we'll probably be there, as long as this load screen does the business. There we go, into the team report. We came 5th, which is massively above where we were planned to, which means our marketability and our chairman happiness shouldn't drop. There have been some gains made on the way by George Russell, despite not touching the car, which is excellent. I think he's probably on his way to becoming a top-old driver. I think definitely next season he is going to start behind the wheel in the seat that is currently held by Kubica. Because also, as we get confirmation of the result there, also the one thing to bear in mind is that all of our sponsors, which I'll show you in a second, are due to expire, bar one, I think. I think there's one of the electronic company sponsorships, Panasonic or someone. Anyway, one of our sponsors doesn't run out until just inside the new season. The rest of our sponsors will expire at the end of this season, and as long as we don't absolutely screw the pooch and we don't lose we'll go into it now. Now we can. Yeah, all of these except for the Panasonic sponsorship on our rear wing here. I don't know why it's not showing me the rear wing when I hover over that, but everything except Panasonic runs out at the end of the season. Our marketability should stay at about 100%. If it stays at 100%, which it should do, then we're going to be in for a raft of really, really good sponsorships after the next race, which should be very interesting. Doha is the last race. It's an acceleration, low speed corners, and top speed kind of track. Now, if we look at the car, which is probably better to have that on the screen, low speed corners, we are 8th on the grid for. Top speed, we're 8th on the grid for. And the last thing was acceleration. Acceleration, we are back of the grid for. So it's going to be a tough one. A tough run into the end of the season, but I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go through the next 10 days before we do the next episode. But until next time, guys, hit the like and subscribe button if you've enjoyed what you've seen. Want to see the final part of the season, see how this shakes out. Because I think next season I'm going to start building a really, really strong car. I think we're going to be able to maybe compete for the constructors in the next race, or the next season, sorry. But yeah, definitely do that. Also, thoughts in the comments was something I was going to ask for before you hit like and subscribe, and you're heading that way anyway. I want to know, would you like me to start on a fresh 2020 database for the next season, or should we just carry on as we are? Because it won't make a lot of difference. Drivers will still move. I'm still going to have to move Fernando Alonso back into the car, regardless of database we use. Just to keep things consistent, I'll have to keep the tyre things up. So actually, I'll probably, we'll see. We'll see, but I just want to get your opinions. Let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, guys, I have been chasing lamely. You have, as always, been awesome. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.